B Marsh Boxing here to report some sad news. All-time great welterweight, one of the greatest welterweights of all time, Jose Mantequilla, Napoles. He passes away at the age of 79. Jose Napoles was one of the best and greatest welterweights of all time. You know what I mean? The man passed away at the age of 79. His name Mantequilla. His nickname is Spanish for butter because Jose Napoles was a smooth fighter. You know what I mean? He had a smooth boxing style. He was smooth as butter. Two-time welterweight champion. Uh, you know, he had a crazy record, man. I think he had like 80 something wins, 7 losses, and like 54 KOs. You know, I'm gonna read you some quotes from the WBC, who announced on their website that he passed away. Quote, "It is with profound sorrow that we report that Jose Angel Mantequilla Napoles died today, and with his passing, a golden era of the World Welterweight Championship closes full circle. Typical of the man who was the bravest, most dangerous, most courageous of fighters, that although he has been affected by various illnesses for some time, he bravely battled on, attending WBC events, always smiling and being greeted by his many friends and fans who admired him as a fighter and as a man. Today, that struggle came to an end with his children and grandchildren at his bedside in Mexico City. The World Boxing Council is in deep mourning with the departure of one of the very greatest welterweight champions of all time, one of the most beloved people in this sport. A fierce competitor in the ring, he was a kind gentleman outside of it. Rest in peace. Jose Napoles was one of the most renowned welterweight champions of all time. WBC champ. I remember he had 2 straps. He got stripped of the WBA title. I can't remember for what. Um, he was born in Cuba and had an amateur record of 113 or 114 and one. Only one loss. You know, he defected from Cuba in 1962 when Castro's communist regime had banned boxing in 1961. So the man, Jose Napoles, he came to Mexico City, where he became a Mexican citizen. I believe he became a Mexican citizen after he beat Curtis Coates. Okay, that's when he was granted citizenship by Mexico. Eventually, Napoles became a legend, made 13 defenses of his welterweight title, and he had 2 reigns because I remember he had lost to Billy Bacchus. He lost to Billy Bacchus on cuts. Man got cut up, and he avenged his loss. 81 victories, 7 losses, 54 KOs. He never got an opportunity for a title shot at lightweight and 140 pounds. And he defeated some good fighters, like guys like Eddie Perkins. Eddie Perkins, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is the first 140-pound champion. Shout out to PNC. Big ups to PNC Boxing. I remember years ago he did a video on the man Eddie Perkins, a guy out of Chicago. You know what I mean? So the man Jose Napoles moved up to welterweight, and he got a shot at another Hall of Famer, Curtis Coates. Yeah, and he won. He beat the man Curtis Coates, and the fight was stopped in the 13th round, and he became the WBC and the WBA champion. And they met in a rematch 2 months later, and Napoles beat him again and stopped him in the 10th round. You know what I mean? You check it. So Napoles was a great fighter. He beat guys like Mel Griffin, um, and the guy Billy Bacchus I mentioned. And I think on his fourth title defense, Jose Napoles lost to Billy Bacchus. You know what I'm saying? But then he stopped him in a rematch in the 4th round, and he'd go on to defend his title 10 times in his second reign. You know what I mean? You check it. So he was a great fighter, man. He even fought. I think the first fight I ever watched of Jose Napoles was when he went up in weight to fight Carlos Monzon. He jumped up two weight classes, went from 147 welterweight, went up to 160 to face arguably a top three. Some probably even have him as the number one greatest middleweight of all time, Carlos Monzon from out of Argentina. You know what I mean? But you know how it goes, going up to weight classes, man. It's only rare. It's very rare. Only the greats have been able to do it, to go up to weight classes and get the victory. You know, but a fighter from England who was a school teacher or a gym teacher by the name of John H. Stracey, Caucasian guy. He went out to Mexico City in 1975, and he beat the man Jose Napoles. You know what I mean? He knocked him out in 6 rounds. I couldn't believe it. You know, I didn't watch the fight live. I wasn't even born in 1975. You know, but just watching that fight, you know what I mean, as a boxing fan, I've watched millions of fights of all-time greats and everybody in between, you know what I mean? And John H. Stracey wasn't supposed to win that fight, but he was determined to come and get that W. It's kind of like almost the same situation the man Anthony Yard is going to Russia, going to the man's backyard to fight Kovalev. That's what John H. Stracey did. And he got it done, you know what I mean? He was determined that day, unleashing mean body shots on Jose Napoles. Jose Napoles, a fighter, got inducted into the Hall of Fame, the very first class in 1990. He was a no-brainer. All those guys who got picked in the first class, guys like Muhammad Ali, 1990, um, Rocky Marciano, you know, Joe Louis, these type of people, it's a no-brainer. They were inducted in the first Hall of Fame class because they were just great fighters, and Jose Napoles is one of them. He was a no-brainer, inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1990, and was a fighter of the year in 1969, and it was trained by the Hall of Fame trainer Angelo Dundee. So this is just a tribute to the man Jose Napoles. I encourage you to go watch a few of his fights. Um, Watch the fights versus Curtis Koch and also Billy Bacchus, you know what I mean? Even the Mel Griffin, those are some good fights. You know what I'm saying? And finally, watch the fight that he had with John H. Stracey after you watched all his fights and see, you know, so eventually great champions title era, their era is going to end. You know, he had numerous title defenses, 10 title defenses in his second reign as champion, and I believe four before that in his first reign. So this guy was no joke. Um, I know that he's the WBC took care of him, and he was they gave him like a pension, you know what I mean, like a retirement pension for the rest of his life. So he's one of the few fighters at the W that did receive a pension, you know what I mean, from the WBC or from any sanctioning body. I wish they did the same for what's his name, Wilfredo Benitez, you know what I mean. Um, so yeah, he was close friends with Mauricio Suleiman and Don Jose Suleiman, and they granted him a lifetime pension and the services of the Mexican Social Security. You know what I'm saying? Which is a good deed, because the man was a guy who defected from Cuba, came to Mexico to ply his trade because when Fidel Castro came into power in Cuba, he outlawed boxing. So just gotta give a rest in peace, rest in power, and a tribute in memory of one of the greatest welterweights of all time. Would I consider him a top five greatest welterweight? You might have to wait for my top five dead or alive series. But would I consider him? I would have guys like Ray Robinson there. Um, yeah, I think Jose Napoles makes the top five. He makes the top five greatest welterweights of all time, no doubt about it. Mantequilla, smooth as butter. Be Marsh Boxer, leave your thoughts and comments and pay homage and the tribute to the great Jose Mantequilla Napoles. Great fighter out of Cuba, known to ply his trade in Mexico, and one of the first Hall of Famers to be inducted in Canastota, New York, in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Be Marsh Boxing, leave your thoughts and comments, and I'm Ghost.